There is a massive fire happening right now in Vacaville, and we want to show you some live pictures from the scene. Let's go straight to our reporter, Tom Miller. Tom?
Yeah, Brian, this is Keating Park in Vacaville. It's about 100 acres, is what I'm told, the fire right now, and 100 people have been evacuated. But there's no way to describe this without the pictures, and you can just see the size of this blaze. The entire mountainside is lit up in flames, and not too far away are homes. If we could just pan to the right here, I'm going to ask my photographer, Alan. You can see where the homes are, and you can see there are more firefighters working to put out these hot spots. And just below them is a huge neighborhood. To repeat, we know at least 100 people have been evacuated. They've gone to an evacuation center that's just at the bottom of this neighborhood here. We know that this fire started sometime, I'd say around 10:30, and initially we were just getting reports on how this was growing in size. It was 10 acres, and then the next phone call I got, which was maybe about a half hour ago, said it was 100 acres. You can see those flames, and those are a good distance away, and I can tell you that just from where we're standing, you can feel the heat. And as pretty obviously, you can also tell what's driving this blaze right now is the wind, just ripping through this area as it becomes hard for these firefighters to get in front of this, as these embers are just ripping across the landscape here. I just spoke with a member of a team. He said he was from a local jail or prison. You know, they're out here working. They have these groups of firefighters that can come out here. They're working to put out the hot spots, and that's what's just going on over here to my right. But again, the latest information that we know, 100 acres, 100 people evacuated. We don't know if any structures have been lost. We don't believe so. But this firefight continues as this blaze doesn't seem to be getting any smaller.
I mean, Tom, while we have you with us, what can you tell us about the other end of that fire? There on your end, we see those firefighters working so hard to put out those hot spots, but obviously the concern of the moment is that giant blaze burning on that hillside in that park behind you. What are they saying in terms of any chance at all at getting any kind of containment line, especially with that wind?
You know, to be honest, we haven't heard anything about a containment line, and I think it would be premature to suggest that they can get one right now. But I will show you what we can see over here. We'll just walk over to this hot spot. You can see this group of firefighters. They're working. This is a spot that was already burnt, and you can just tell by those street lights beyond them how close the homes are. And you know, just below that, where you can't even really see from here, is an entire neighborhood. So they're working. You know, they have shovels out here. They have picks. They're working to sort of create a fire line to get rid of the hot spots. But as you can just see right there, when they pick up the earth, those are sparks that are flying. Those are embers that are flying. And when we were, you know, maybe half mile down from this, when we just first arrived, we were getting sparks flying, and you just by looking at me and this whole scene, you can tell that the wind is going to be a challenge as this firefight continues.
Yeah, Tom, the wind seems to be the real factor here tonight with this fire going on. I mean, it sure looks as though this could cause the fire to just spread to other places at any point in time.
Yeah, and you know, we really haven't had a chance to survey where else the firefight is going on right now. This seems to be the primary problem area. I will say that firefighters are doing a great job of protecting the homes. When we just went down to the neighborhood below us, you didn't actually see any, you know, nothing was on fire, and it really didn't get that close to the homes to the point where, you know, it was in anybody's backyard. Just like some of these hot spots that you see burning, like that one right there, that looks like that may have been a tree, and sort of the branches that have fallen are what's burning, but that doesn't necessarily look to be spreading. That seems like it's pretty much contained within itself. But this wind and the smoke, when we were down there on the street earlier, there were a bunch of residents who just, you know, you have your eyes covered, you have your mask, if you're lucky enough to have one, covering your face. You know, you saw people crying as as I sort of am right now, just trying to protect themselves as they worry about also protecting their homes, protecting their families. Right now, this is really in the firefighters' hands, though.
Tom, what we're seeing behind you is really well-defined areas of flame in sort of what looks like mountains and mountains of darkness, blackness. I wonder, from where you are, if you're able to tell, first, how far away are you from homes, and can you tell exactly how far away those homes are away from the flames?
I mean, to be honest, I don't think some of these hot spots are not much further than 100 feet or so. I'm going to see if I can walk with my photographer through this hot spot. We're going to follow this group right here, and this should give you a very good idea of where the homes are. So all this area where we're walking on right now is charred, and below them you can see the fire trucks, you can see the neighborhood. You know, we're right there, and fortunately this blaze hasn't continued on into the neighborhood. But, you know, guess what? All it would take is a few misplaced embers, and suddenly we have a much bigger problem than this already seems to be. We'll continue, you know, walking with these firefighters. They look like they're just looking for any hot spots. It doesn't seem like they found any real problem areas. I'm seeing, though, what appears to be maybe a flare-up over here. That could just be a light. No, it is a flare-up. So this is what we're talking about. When you have flames like this and you have something like this burning, who knows what could happen. But when you look out there at the street now, you can see the firefighters' priority number one, as they always tell us, is protecting these homes. And I'm sure that they're doing a very good job of making sure that, you know, there really aren't any catastrophic instances.
Tom, thank you for that vantage point. You are on a hilltop, but for all intents and purposes, it looks clear that the flames that burned where you are standing were just across the street from people's homes.
Certainly, certainly.
Well, Tom, good reporting out there. Be careful. We're going to check back in with you here in just a second, but we want to check in with Mark Mazzaferro. He is the spokesperson for the city of Vacaville. And Mark, if you're on the phone with us, tell us what you know about this fire at this point tonight.
Well, the fire is approximately 200 acres, maybe a little better. There have been some voluntary evacuations requested in some neighborhoods. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. You're doing great, Mark.
Yeah, okay. There have been some evacuations, voluntary evacuations in the neighborhoods near the fire. There is no level of containment at this point. We're asking people to naturally avoid the area at all costs, but the firefighters do their work. It's about it's over 5 alarms with some assistance from county folks as well.
Mark, do you have a sense right now of the neighborhoods or maybe the streets that are going to be in the greatest danger of this fire right now?
Well, basically, lots of the homes along California Drive. So these are the areas that we're asking for voluntary evacuation. Skyview Place, Arequipa at California Drive, south end of El Matador Motorhome Park, in Hidden Oaks.
Mark, I noticed a couple times you said voluntary. These are voluntary evacuations. Why are they not mandatory evacuations?
Well, because at this point, while certainly the fire is moving, it's not, our crews feel it's safe enough. If people want to leave, we have a place set up for them to go.
Mark, when you've talked with the firefighters, what have they told you about these wind conditions and how much of a factor and a problem that they are tonight?
The winds are definitely causing a problem. We've had gusts over 40 miles per hour, and they've been steady at 30 miles an hour and changing direction, which is creating a lot of problems for our guys and gals out there.
And Mark, I know it's early, but have firefighters given you any indication of what might have led to this tonight, or at least an exact point of origin of those flames? Do they know that?
They aren't sure exactly where it started yet or how it started, but it's being investigated, obviously. But at this point, the focus is attacking those areas you were just looking at and trying to get this fire knocked down.
And this bears repeating. Tell us one more time where those evacuation centers are, those shelters for tonight that people can go to.
Yeah, we're asking everyone to go to the Three Oaks Community Center. It's at 1100 Alamo Drive, and the Red Cross is going to be there to help as well.
Okay, Mark Mazzaferro from the city of Vacaville, thank you for your time tonight. Thanks for the input, and best of luck to all those firefighters out there. Let's go to Dirk now and get more perspective on those strong winds that are happening in that area. Dirk?
Yeah, winds. And these are winds. It's that Delta breeze is helping to cool things off here in the valley. Very strong winds this evening. And that's what's causing such problems with this fire at this point. You can see from Travis Airfield, which is to the south there, that's where we have the strongest winds, southwest to 25 miles per hour. As you work your way from Fairfield on towards Vacaville, there's a decrease in winds, but that's really misleading because where this is positioned, you can see the location of the fire. Again, Vacaville is to the north and to the east of it, and then you can see to the west and to the south, we have this little mountain range. There's a little bit of a hills that's making its way towards I-80. There's a break between the hills, and that's where I-80 goes through, and so we have winds that are going to be coming up over the hills, but also the strongest winds are going to be running parallel with those hills right into the fire, pushing it to the north, and that's where the community is. You can see to the east is where that is, and then to the north you have I-80, and there's houses all along that side of the mountain, or at least down at the base of the mountain, where when you get up on the mountain, it's mainly just dried grass. There's some scrub, there's some oak trees that are along there as well, all that are very, very dry, and that can be used for fuel. And with the winds like we're seeing, that's just going to continue to push any embers out in front and move that fire along very quickly. But as we've noticed, the firefighters staying very close to those homes, making sure that any of those embers don't fall down where the homes are, and that could cause a problem and ignite some of the areas around where those homes are. So you have to be very careful there. But these winds are expected to dissipate slowly as we make our way towards sunrise, but we're still going to be dealing with these winds all night long, and they should pick up again tomorrow. So hopefully they'll be able to get a lot of this down tonight, but the winds are going to continue to be a problem over the next 24 hours.
Those winds are just the worst possible news tonight. To recap for you right now, this fire burning at Keating Park. So far, Vacaville police have been telling us about evacuations in 3 different areas: Skyview Place, Arequipa Court, the El Matador Mobile Home Park. An evacuation center has been set up at the Three Oaks Community Center. Yeah, we just heard a few moments ago that this has gone to 5 alarms now. So this has become a very big fire, and one that certainly is of great concern to folks in Vacaville there. We know of some streets, Hidden Oaks, Arequipa Court, El Matador Mobile Home Park, as well as Skyview Place, just a few of the streets that are going to be affected by this, as there are voluntary evacuations right now happening in those areas because they are the streets of greatest concern right now. And there's some of the firefighters working hard to try to protect those homes, try to build any kind of fire line they can to create a break so that the flames will not reach those homes. We are going to keep an eye on this for you throughout the night. Of course, we'll have more for you on the KCRA 3 Morning News, as well as online through the KCRA 3 mobile app and KCRA.com. We want to update you now on a massive 3-alarm fire burning right now in Vacaville. It's been forcing people from their homes. This one is burning near Keating Park, and so far Vacaville police are telling us about evacuations on several different streets, including Skyview Place, Arequipa Court, as well as the El Matador Mobile Home Park. We also know of some evacuations on Atherton and Selby Courts, as well as Hidden Oaks Court. And we know that there's an evacuation center that's been set up at the Three Oaks Community Center. And we're about to join Tom Miller live at the scene. Tom, when we talked to you about 15 minutes ago, you saw at least 1 flare-up on that hillside right behind you. Tell us what you're seeing now.
Well, Kathy, honestly, just in the last 2 minutes, we've seen another flare-up, and I want to take you to it right now. Check out this tree. We just saw that really start to take off. You know, that's maybe a quarter mile up the hill from where we are, and as I'm sure you can hear in my microphone, the winds are still driving this. You know, just looking out at this landscape, this appears to be, you know, covered in brush, but there are these large trees sticking out at various spots. There's one right there that you can just see sort of its roots are still burning, and the firefighters are just checking for any hot spots as that fire begins to take off. The latest information we know right now is that this fire is now over 300 acres. We've received 2 updates along the way, well, 3 rather. It was when this first started around 10:30. It was at 10 acres. I then got an update at 100, 200. The latest is that it's over 300. That's according to Vacaville police. And just following the news as this is developing on social media, you're seeing tweets talking about, you know, all the surrounding agencies responding here. We've seen CAL FIRE out here. We've seen Vallejo, Davis, and let's just watch as this is happening right here. You see these firefighters. Let's walk over there. You know, they're starting to pull out a hose. It sounds like they're firing up the pump. And it looks like, you know, what's between them and the earth right now is this fence. And so, you know, if they're going to want to deal with this, they're either going to need to take out that fence or start spraying from here. And it looks like they're going to just do what they can from where they're standing as that hose gets going and starts spraying our camera. But, you know, it's these hot spots and the wind that's the main concern, and this is the primary way of taking care of them. But, you know, to give you some perspective of where the neighborhood is, these guys are right here and just right across the street. That's a play structure, that's a home. Beyond that is a huge neighborhood. So this fire has come extremely close to these homes. At this point, to my knowledge, no homes have been lost, as that's been priority number 1 for the firefighters. Back to you.
Tom, we know that in addition to the evacuation areas we knew about earlier, there are also now more voluntary evacuations underway at Atherton and Selby courts. At least Vacaville PD is requesting that people voluntarily evacuate that area. Now, they're not mandatory evacuations, they're voluntary. So I'm wondering, in the area where you are, we have to assume, as close to flames as you are, that structure that you showed us behind you, that people evacuated. But do you know, are there people that you're seeing who are deciding to stay put rather than leave? Have you had a chance to talk to residents?
That's a great question. There are people who are staying here. That home we just showed you, no less than 10 minutes ago, we saw a woman, you know, walking in her backyard, peeking out over the fence line. There are other residents also in that same neighborhood who have stayed behind. You know, in the more than an hour that I've been here, I've maybe seen 3 residents in this immediate cul-de-sac. Further down the road, maybe another 500 feet, there's a group that's gathered that's just watching, you know, nervously as their homes are potentially in jeopardy here. You can see in this home down here, the lights are still on, and yes, the residents are home. You know, there's been nervous moments. You know, we've requested to speak with the residents. Understandably, they have other priorities right now. And so, you know, I spoke with a man and I asked if we could talk with him, and he said, no, I need to go to my house. There's some things I need to get out. If we just pan to our right here, you can see there's a resident right there walking in her backyard. You know, this is certainly cause for concern as this hillside behind her house remains in flames.
And Tom, those winds are the big factor tonight. Have they eased off at all from what you can tell, or are they just as bad as they were when we checked in with you last?
They are still very intense, and I'd say they are equally as intense as when you checked in with us. You know, you can just hear this, you can see the smoke blowing right at our camera. However, initially, when we first got here, and I don't know if it was the winds that were necessarily playing the factor or where the fire was actually burning, but we were covered in smoke. You couldn't breathe, you couldn't see. We had to go back for masks. You can see here, just to go back to this resident, she has her garden hose out. She's working to do what she can to prevent the fire from, you know, or any potential hot spots from spreading here. You know, garden hose probably doesn't have very much power at this point, but you know, when you're in this desperate situation, you do what you can, and it's quite understandable why she'd be doing this at this point. However, the winds, I believe we heard a spokesperson for the city of Vacaville tell us that his latest report was somewhere in the range of 40 miles an hour. That sounds about right, possibly lower, but certainly a force to be reckoned with.
40-mile-an-hour winds. We've watched this fire do nothing but grow. From the pictures that you're showing us, Tom, behind you, it just looks like city lights in the distance. The widespread nature of those flames on that hilltop in the area of Keating Park in Vacaville. Now, I know as early as it is, it may be a little too early to talk about when firefighters might get a handle on this fire, but if you can give us a little bit of perspective. We know Keating Park is on the southwest end of the city of Vacaville. Do you know what end of the fire you are on, and what end that would tell us what end they were putting out those hot spots on, so it's the opposite area that they seem to be having the most trouble with?
I mean, all I can tell you is that I know we are at the bottom of the fire, and I've walked up on the two sort of peaks on either side of where we're standing, and there is charred earth on both sides. I believe that the fire has been moving in the direction that we're facing. So over this hillside, we've seen more activity, and you know, behind us, it's pretty docile at this point, Sharakina, and you know, this crew that's out here with this hose right now, they just arrived, you know, moments before we went live on the air. So, you know, if that means anything, you know, if anything to me, that means that this is not necessarily their highest priority. You know, we tried to walk back here before, and this is where really the smoke is starting to pick up. And you know, half hour ago when we were walking here, we couldn't make it. You know, it'd be interesting to see just how far we can go as we continue to walk through here. The issue before was the smoke and the heat. The heat was actually providing a pretty big problem for us, but I want to continue walking this way. I think as we just continue going down this road, as if we get on the other side of this fire truck, that may provide some perspective as to just how far the fire is burned. So let's give that a shot here. As you can see, these firefighters working to pull out hose, but you can see they're pretty much right at the end of their line there. As we continue this way, you know, the path goes down, and yeah, there are more hot spots, and this will be interesting to see. I'll look up here, and these are big trees. The flames haven't yet reached these, but and just down here to the other side, you know, you have more homes. There's this chain link fence, but you can see the firefighters are down there as the flames are right here on the other side. And this is about as far as I want to go. It is very smoky. It is very windy. And as you can tell, we're really not too far from the flames.
Tom, that's what I wanted to ask you, because it's hard to tell sometimes when the camera zooms, but it sure looks to me like the flames are a lot closer to you than they were when we saw you about 20 minutes ago.
Right, and I think, as I was saying earlier, if we were to continue down this path, and this is just a dirt path, so I'm assuming it's safe to walk here, but you can see, okay, now I'm starting to see there are fire trucks sort of on the horizon this way, and we saw a lot of resources pouring this way about a half hour ago, and you can actually see a firefighter walking up there if you are able to peer through the trees there. This is the primary focus. You know, again, if there were structures on fire, which I don't believe there are, I'm pretty sure we'd be able to tell. There would be a huge, you know, huge at least burst of light. The smoke would probably blend in just because this is so smoky, so windy. But we'll head back the other way. As you can see, you know, these flames really are not too far from these trees, and certainly not too far from the homes right below. If you can just make that out, you know, those are all the fire trucks, and they're at the bottom of the cul-de-sac. You know, up top closer, that's where the homes are. I don't want to say the fire's winding down, but I do think at least in this area where we're standing, they're doing a pretty good job of at least, you know, having some containment from preventing the flames from spreading down to the homes. And I assume this dirt road has certainly helped if there's any embers that have started to, you know, blow their way over in this direction.
Tom, we can certainly hear the wind in your microphone. I can see it at times blowing through the fire gear you're wearing there. Thank you for your excellent reporting live tonight in Vacaville. Let's bring KCRA 3 meteorologist Dirk Verdorn into this conversation. Dirk, those firefighters have such an enormous challenge tonight with that wind.
Yeah, the wind, and that's such a large part of this and fighting this fire. There's not a lot that could be done other than to just try to save those homes and just let that burn, because it just pushes those embers ahead, and that fire moves along at a very quick pace. That wind pushing it at upwards of 29 to 30 miles per hour. We're seeing Fairfield registering a southwest wind at 29 miles per hour, and it is weakening as it goes farther north. But you also have to consider the terrain and what the terrain does. And what we're seeing here is some kind of a funneling effect along that east side of the mountain there in the southwest corner of Vacaville, and that's where the fire is located. And some of the strongest winds running parallel to that line of a mountain there, and it works this way from the south and it's going north towards I-80. And I'm sure that most of the activity is going on to the north side of the fire, where we're kind of covering it more to the south side. And as we zoom out, you can kind of see just the general direction that smoke's going through Vacaville. It's going to be making its way on towards Davis. You may even start to smell some of that near Woodland, Dixon. And then, because it takes a bit of a left-hand turn, more of a northerly turn, and so it's going to be going through Sacramento on towards places like Lincoln, Wheatland, Sheridan, and even off towards Knights Landing. We could see some of that smoke making its way through those areas, and people are going to be waking up possibly early in the morning smelling smoke. And the source, of course, is going to be this fire near Vacaville, as these winds are expected to continue through the early morning hours.
All right, Dirk, thank you. We want to recap that fire now, more than 320 acres. Only voluntary evacuations in place at this point. Those are in several areas, including Skyview Place, the Matador Mobile Home Park, as well as most recently a couple of locations Vacaville PD tweeted about earlier, Atherton and Selby Courts. If you need to evacuate, evacuation center is set up. Three Oaks Community Center, that's at 1100 Alamo Drive. And a spokesman for the city of Vacaville told us not too long ago that the Red Cross will be there as well to help people.
And we know about 125 people have already showed up to that evacuation center at Three Oaks Community Center. And again, this fire still growing. It's at 320 acres. It seems like about every 10 to 15 minutes we get a new acreage update, and it at least doubles in size every time. So we will continue to keep following this. Of course, the wind is the big story, as Dirk just told you. That's really going to be the deciding factor here as to how long this firefight goes on. As long as those winds keep up, it's going to be very difficult for the firefighters to do what they need to do, because right now they have no containment at all on this fire from what we can tell and from what we've been told. So this is all unfolding right now in Solano County, and you saw from Tom Miller a few moments ago, there are some homes not far from where he was standing. There was still some people we could see in the yard with garden hoses doing what they could to try to moisten that dry brush and grass around their homes, trying to do anything they can to keep the fire from getting to their home. But at this point, it's really just going to be a real battle here between these firefighters and those winds.
That's right. Every time we've heard new information about this fire, it's been bigger than the last time we heard about it. One thing we haven't yet heard about, thankfully, is anybody being hurt. And so hopefully that will remain true throughout the duration of this until they have that fire put out. So we will continue to follow this for you here on KCRA 3 News. Of course, look for updates through the KCRA 3 mobile app. We have another edition of the KCRA 3 Morning News beginning in just a few hours. We will have a new reporting team headed out there here very shortly, and they'll continue to gather more information to give you the updates in the morning. You can also find those updates at KCRA.com. And of course, if you're following us on Twitter, we'll be doing that throughout the night as well. For now, we are going to wrap up our coverage in Vacaville, but be sure and stay tuned with us, because if something major happens, if something changes, we will break in and let you know about it.